before I start this video, a quick reminder that I am helping you guys get free structure decks. So go to the video in the description, and probably I'll link it in the comments as well. I am helping you guys get free stuff by entering your guys' codes in my new account. So if you haven't posted your code yet, I am going to start redeeming in a few days. So you still have a bit of time. Go there, reply with your code in the comments, and then I will do my best to redeem as many codes as I could with my account. With that said, I'm sure you guys all know about this friend invitation campaign, which is really ridiculously good because it gives us like really good structure decks. So this is the hero one, which is the one that we will be using in this video. So this video, we are going to slightly modify this friend code campaign deck and adding in some free to obtain cards, as well as a couple of cards from the structure deck and the Super Poly bundle, because Super Poly is very important for this deck. We will not be using any cards that can only be obtained from boxes, so you don't have to open a single box for this deck. And it is designed so that you can build this deck in day one. You enter a code, you get this hero structure deck, and then you open a structure deck. You buy a structure deck in the shop, and then you open the Super Poly bundle with the starting gems, and then you can immediately have a competitive hero deck. So this is the deck as it is that you get from the campaign. It is pretty good already as is, but we're gonna add a bit more things and also use a skill so that we can actually make this deck competitively viable. So this is the modified deck list. We are using the skill Dragonic Contact, which is the best hero skill that we have. We have a lot of them that has been released over the years, and this is the most recent one that's very, very good. And this skill lets us basically cheat out any of the boss monsters that kind of like the friends of Jaden in the GX anime. So like you can cheat out Rainbow Dragon, you can cheat out Arm Dragon. We're not playing Arm Dragon Thunder because that card is very good, but it is from a box. So this is designed to be able to be built without needing to open a single box. So we're playing one Rainbow Dragon because the skill needs us to play one. Arm Dragon level 10 is a very good card going second to just be made for free from our skill and then clear anything our opponent has. A lot of the cards are also just from the structure deck. So the main upgrades of this deck are obviously the Rainbow Dragon because you need it for the skill, Arm Dragon level 10, and those are... and Kiteroid. These are like the free cards that you can add. That you can get from the card tickets. And then you also get one structure deck. You get the Armed Near's Thunder structure deck, which gives you several really important pieces, which is one copy of Crosskeeper, more importantly, a copy of Elemental Hero Sunrise. This card is very important for this deck because it allows us to search Miracle Fusion. And also we get a copy of Armed Near, so we might as well play it. It's not really that good because it's kind of hard to make, but because we have space in the extra deck, we might as well play it. And also, yeah, Elemental Hero Great Tornado also comes from that structure deck. So the campaign deck has a lot of the other Elemental Heroes like Shining, Nova Master, Gaia, and Escuridao. Yeah, so we have those four, but we don't have Great Tornado for whatever reason. So once you get that structure deck, you also get the Great Tornado as well, so you cover the wind attribute. And we're also playing one copy of Super Polymerization because this is like the cornerstone of the strategy. It's like the reason why this deck is good. And you can also get it very easily using the special set, so the special bundle in the shop. You just spend a bit of gems and then you're guaranteed to get a copy of Super Polymerization. So pretty easy to get overall, and everything else are pretty much included in the campaign structure deck. Because this video is kind of like intended for new players to watch and then build their first good deck, I will go into more detail on every single card and the skill of this deck and try to kind of explain what this deck does. And also we'll show a replay where I play against a bot, and then I'll kind of explain what you actually do when you get into a game with this deck. So the skill is kind of what makes this entire deck work. It is a very good skill, and it's very new player friendly as well. So what it does is it has only one effect, which is kind of unusual for a skill made in the year 2025, but it is a really, really good effect. And it's also once per turn instead of once per duel, which is one of the biggest upsides of the skill, is that you can just use it every turn instead of just only once in a single game. So what the skill allows us to do is send a warrior monster or a level 10 monster from your hand or face up view to the graveyard, and then play one of the following monsters in face down defense, but you're allowed to flip it up during the turn that it is set. So usually when you special summon a monster face down, you cannot flip it up during the same turn that it is set, but the skill kind of just like circumvents this and allows you to flip that same monster up during the turn that it is set. And it also adds 2 cards to your hand, one super polymerization from your own deck, and one normal polymerization from outside your deck. And even though you can only search it once, search the super polymerization once because you're only allowed to play one single copy, you can search an unlimited amount of polymerizations from outside your deck because the skill is only once per turn and not once per duel. So every time you use the skill, you get a free polymerization, and even if you don't use it as, you know, the spell card that it is intended to be used as, you can just use it as a discard for something like an Armed Dragon level 10. You can just discard your extra copies of polymerization that you don't need in order to use its effect to destroy monsters. So this is also, the skill is also the main way that, and also like the only way that we will be summoning this guy. Armed Dragon level 10 is a powerhouse when you go second. It is really big, it has the stats of Blue Eyes White Dragon, and it has a really strong effect. You can send any card from your hand to the graveyard to destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. So it just destroys everything your opponent has. Like if they have multiple boss monsters, they are forced to get rid of the Armed Dragon level 10 before it uses its effect, otherwise they're just all gone. And also the thing about this card is that it's not once per turn, so if you use this effect once and then your opponent negates it, if it's still on the field, you can just use it again. You can just use it again. And if they have like some kind of destruction protection, you can just pop them multiple times in as long as you have things in your hand for you to send to the graveyard. So even things like Nearest Fusion, so if your opponent is also playing heroes and they have a Nearest Fusion in the graveyard, that's completely fine because you can just destroy them again and again until they eventually get destroyed. So let's actually have a look at the hero monsters in this deck. So 3 copies of Stratos, which is a really good monster. It has 2 effects. When it's normal special summoned, it can choose either one of them. You can either search another hero monster, which will almost always be Liquid Soldier, or another copy of itself if you already have the Liquid Soldier. Or you can destroy spell or trap cards on the field up to the number of hero monsters you control except for this card. So this is also the main way that you will be popping your opponent's set back row. And it is really strong because it does not target. So you can just declare the effect, and your opponent will have a choice to either just hope that you don't destroy the things that they need, or they have to like preemptively activate any of their back row, and then you can just choose to pop something else because you choose what to destroy after your opponent activates the thing in response. And Liquid Soldier is your other low-level elemental hero, which you will be searching with Stratos most of the time. It has 2 effects. If it's normal summoned, you can revive a level 4 lower hero monster. So what you can do is use your skill to send this to send the Stratos to the graveyard. And then when you normal summon Liquid Soldier, you can bring back the Stratos from the graveyard. And then because you have a Liquid Soldier next to it, you can use the spell trap card destroying effect and destroy one of your opponent's back row. So that's a neat little combo that you will be using a lot. And also it has another effect, when it's used as a fusion material and is sent to the graveyard or banished, you can draw 2 cards and then discard a card. So this is a really strong effect because it allows you to draw into your other cards that you otherwise cannot search to your hand. For example, Kiteroid is a lot easier to draw into because of effects like Liquid Soldier that helps you draw 2 cards just for free. We were playing 2 copies of Neos. The reason why we were playing 2 and not just 1 copy, even though we can summon it using our skill from our deck, is because even if we draw into 1 copy, we have a 2nd copy in our deck so that we can use Neo's Fusion to send from our deck to the graveyard. And Neo's Fusion is really strong, so we just always want at least 1 copy of Neo's to be in our deck at all times. We are also playing 1 copy of Cross Keeper. This card is a warrior, so you can also send this for our skill if we need to. And this card can send itself to the graveyard to special summon back a Elemental Hero monster or Neospatian, but we are not playing any Neospatians. And you also negate its effects, so you can't, just revive a Stratos and then use the effect. But what you can do is use its effect to just get any hero monster on your field so that your Stratos can destroy 1 more back row. So this is usually just used to get more bodies to your field so that Stratos has more value when you use its effect to destroy your opponent's stuff. But the more useful effect is the second one, where if you summon an Elemental Hero Fusion monster while this card is in the graveyard, you can banish it and then you draw 2 cards again, and then you put 1 back into the bottom of your deck. So in combination with Liquid Soldier, this deck can draw 4 cards pretty much every single turn, as long as you have access to both of these cards. And drawing 4 cards in a 20 card deck, 21 technically, is really good. So yeah, that is one of the biggest strengths of this deck. We're playing 2 copies of Kiteroid, and I might have to explain this decision a bit. So if you look at the other deck list, which I will talk about an expensive version of the deck later, as like an upgrade to this deck, you might be able to see that people aren't playing Kiteroid and playing other things like Necro Valley or other trap cards that stop your opponent. So because the expensive version has access to Armed Dragon Thunder level 10, which is this card, they have more ways to interact with your opponent when you go first. So you can set up Armed Dragon Thunder level 10 to destroy your opponent's things during their turn. We can also set up a Super Poly, which we also have, and also the recently released Winged Kuriboh level 6, which is a way that you can destroy your opponent's monsters when they activate a monster effect. Let me just try to find it real quick. So the way you search it is with this fusion monster, Flame Wingman Infernal Rage. You add it to your hand, and then if your opponent tries to activate a monster effect, you can send this to the graveyard and then destroy a monster, and then you inflict a bit of effect damage as well. So the upgraded version of this deck has a lot more ways to stop your opponent using in-engine cards, whereas this cheaper version only pretty much has super polymerization. So the game plan of this deck, of this version of this deck, is to instead of trying to stop your opponent from doing their combo, we're gonna just let them do their combo. We're gonna keep the super polymerization in our hand so that we can use it during our own turn to break whatever they have set up. So instead of trying to stop our opponent, we're just trying to not die. And the best card to do that is Kiteroid. Because you draw so many cards during your turn, it's very likely that you draw into a copy of Kiteroid, and even if we don't, we can send it to the graveyard using Neo's Fusion, and then it protects us from taking damage during our opponent's turn. And so they will do their combo, they will summon their monsters, they will try to attack, and we will protect ourselves with Kiteroid, which says during damage calculation, if your opponent attacks directly, you can discard this card, and then you just take no damage. And also it can block a second attack by banishing itself from the graveyard. So it's really hard for your opponent to be able to deal enough damage to kill you when you have Kiteroid in your hand, because it just blocks 2 attacks. And when they pass back to you, you still have your super polymerization in your hand, and then with all the follow-up that you have prepared, you can try to just destroy all of your opponent's stuff and then win on turn 3. So that's why we're playing 2 Kiteroid instead of any other traps that might interact with our opponent. And for the spells, we're playing 2 Emergency Call. If you have a 3rd copy, you should play a 3rd copy, but because the structure deck only gives you 2, we're playing only 2. 1 Super Polymerization is required for the skill to add 2 copies of Miracle Fusion. We don't really need a 3rd copy because it doesn't really do a whole lot on its own, and also it is searchable from Sunrise. And finally, 3 copies of Near's Fusion, which is a fusion spell that can fusion summon using stuff from our deck, which is really strong. Usually when you fusion summon, you need to use the stuff in your hand or field, or in the case of Miracle Fusion, you can also banish from the graveyard. But fusion summoning from the deck is the best way to fusion summon using your own things. So you will be usually sending a copy of Nears and a copy of Rainbow Dragon, both from your deck, and then be able to make a copy of Rainbow Nears, which you get for free. This card is really strong. When you make this card, you pretty much win the game, as long as your opponent doesn't stop its effect. So it has a really high attack stat, and also it can have one of 3 effects to either get rid of all your opponent's monsters, all your opponent's spells and traps, or every card in their graveyard. So usually you will be using its effect to just get rid of all of their monsters, and then you can just attack and then win the game because it has such a high attack. For fusions, I just talked about Rainbow Nears. Armed Nears is something that you won't be making very often because it's kind of hard to summon. So you can make this with Nears Fusion, but if you're activating Nears Fusion, you're usually making Rainbow Nears because this card is just better in every single way. But technically you can still make this card. This card can, when special summoned, choose a dragon monster in your graveyard and then just destroy all monsters your opponent controls with a equal or lower level than that monster. And then when this card destroys a monster by battle, this card gains the following effect. So it gains a quick effect during the main phase. You can tribute this card to special summon an elemental hero fusion monster from your extra deck, but ignoring its summoning conditions. So it does have some uses if you are able to make this card, but it is not used very often. Sunrise is the biggest upgrade that you can make towards the initial Franco campaign deck, because this card allows you to fusion summon using 2 hero monsters with different attributes. So that makes use of the free polymerization that you get from your skill. You can just use it, and then like 9 times out of 10 you're immediately making this card. Sunrise, when special summon, can add a copy of Miracle Fusion from your deck to your hand. So after you fusion summon once, you can almost immediately fusion summon a second monster using the thing that you just added. The Miracle Fusion can immediately be used to make a second fusion monster. And then also, if any of your hero monster battles, you can pop a card on the field. So this is also a form of removal that your deck has access to. So yeah, that's pretty much the deck. Let's also quickly go over the upgraded version. If you have more gems and if you decide to pay, this is how you can upgrade the deck. So as I said when I talked about the Kiteroid in the previous deck list, the expensive version has a lot more ways to interact with your opponent. So it makes sense for the free-to-play version to just play 2 Kiteroids and no other back row, no other traps to stop your opponent. But in the expensive version, we can just play more cards that stop our opponent. So one of the biggest strengths that this deck can utilize is Necro Valley, because this deck does not really care about using the graveyard. I mean, some of them interact with the graveyard. For example, Crosskeeper needs to be banished to draw 2 cards, and Liquid Soldier can summon from graveyard, and Miracle Fusion needs to banish from the graveyard. So there are cards in our deck that interact with our own graveyard, but Necro Valley is just so very strong that this single card can just shut down entire strategies. So against certain decks, you activate this card and you just win the game. And if you have this card in your hand, you activate it. If your opponent doesn't get rid of it, you probably win anyway, because you can still fusion summon or use your skill to get out your big guys even under Necro Valley. And if your opponent gets rid of it, And that's still good because now you are free to use all of your own graveyard effects because the fuse spell is no longer on the field. Or otherwise, if this card is just not good against your opponent's deck, you just won't activate it at all. So that's the reasoning behind this card. And also we were playing some really strong traps as well. Curse Seal of the Forbidden Spell is a really strong counter trap for this deck specifically, because this deck just gets so many spells in the hand because once per turn you just get a polymerization. If you don't use it and you keep it in your hand, you just have a free spell that you can discard for this counter trap, and it just negates any spell your opponent tries to use, and then they are also forbidden for the rest of the game, which is a really strong type of effect against certain decks that must activate a spell card. We can also use stuff like Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, which negates all Dark Monster effects, because we don't play any Dark Monsters. I mean, we do play a tiny bit, but again, it can affect your opponent a lot more than it affects our deck. And so we're playing more Crosskeepers, we're playing a copy of Armed Dragon Thunder level 10, which is the thing that you will be making every time you go first, which destroys an opponent's monster. Any card, I think. Doesn't have to be a monster. And we're playing a copy of Infernal Rage that we can make on our first turn to grab ourselves a Winged Karibo level 6, which is another way that we can interact with our opponent's things when we go first. And the extra deck looks pretty similar, but we're not playing Armed Nears because that card, as I said, is not very good, and instead we're playing the Infernal Rage and more copies of Sunrise. You can play 3 copies, but because we are only playing 1 Miracle Fusion and 3 Necro Valley, it kinda conflicts. Miracle Fusion isn't really that good alongside the Necro Valley, so we're only playing 2 copies and instead playing a copy of Infernal Rage for that slot. So let's hop into a game against a bot and I'll quickly explain what you actually do with this deck in a game. Okay, so in this replay we're playing just against a random bot, doesn't really matter. So this is what you will be doing with your deck going first. So this is like a tutorial for the cheap version. So if you've never played this deck before, if you're like a new player, this is where you want to be. So the main objective when you go first is to grab Kiteroid, because this lets you not lose when your opponent starts their turn. Because this deck doesn't really have a lot of ways to stop your opponent, the next best thing we can do is to just not lose. And then during the 3rd turn, this deck is really good at getting rid of your opponent's stuff. So we're gonna try to Fusion Summon. So we're gonna use our skill, which adds 2 cards to our hand, 1 normal polymerization from outside the deck, and 1 super polymerization from our own deck. And then as you can see, we can discard the Neos for the skill, and then we can summon the same Neos. And the reason why we're not summoning the one from our deck is because I want a copy of Elemental Hero Neos to remain in our deck so that we can use the copy of Neos Fusion, which allows us to send the Neos from our deck as a fusion material. So we're gonna keep the second Neos in our deck, and we're just gonna summon the one that we just sent to the graveyard. You're allowed to do this. You can summon back the thing that you sent, and then this lets us grab the 2 fusion spells, and also now we have 2 Elemental Hero monsters for us to fusion summon. Now we can use the polymerization that we added from our skill. We're gonna use the 2 hero monsters to fusion summon a copy of Sunrise. So this is very important. So these 2 effects can both be activated in the same chain because they are both triggered at the same time. What you want to do is you want to activate Liquid Soldier first and then Sunrise second. This is very important. You need to sequence this exactly this way because in Yu-Gi-Oh! Chains resolve backwards. So what happens now is because you activated Liquid Soldier first and then Sunrise second, Sunrise will resolve first, and we add a Miracle Fusion, and then Liquid Soldier will draw 2 cards and discard 1 card. And why this is important to be sequenced that way is because if we draw 2 cards first and then we draw into a copy of Miracle Fusion, we no longer have a card for Sunrise to add to our deck, to our hand. So we want to add the Miracle Fusion first so that we don't draw into the Miracle Fusion and then waste the search from Sunrise. So we haven't used our normal summon yet, so we'll do that to normal summon a Stratos. We're gonna grab ourselves a Liquid Soldier and then end our turn. So our objective, other than having Tightroad in our hand, which we already did, is to have a Liquid Soldier in our hand, because this card is really good for the follow-up. After our opponent's turn ends, we can normal summon this card, and then bring back a Stratos from our graveyard, and then trigger its effect to either search, or more likely, we are going to use its effect to destroy our opponent's set back row. So we're going to pass back to our opponent will set 2, because they are bot, they can't really do too much. And here's when these two cards, you might be wondering why we summoned the Sunrise and Defense, and that's because we don't really care about Sunrise. This card can, your opponent can attack over it, and we don't really care about this card staying on our field, because it has already achieved its purpose, which is to trigger the effect of Liquid Soldier when it is used as fusion material, and also grab us a Miracle Fusion for next turn. So it has done its job, it can die, we don't need it anymore. So we can put it in defense so that we don't take damage in case our opponent has a monster with more attack. And also some certain cards only affect attack position monsters, so putting stuff in defense in general is a good idea when you are going first. So we're gonna go back to our turn. As I said, we're gonna normal summon a Liquid Soldier because this card is pretty good when our turn goes back. Our opponent will be activating their traps in response to our Stratos when we attempt to destroy their set back row. And because we don't target, they are pretty much forced to use every single back row that they have. Otherwise, if they, for example, if I'm only allowed to pop one back row, and then they activate one and leave the other face down, we can still just destroy the one that's face down, because we choose what to destroy after he responds to our card. But it doesn't really matter too much in this situation because they only have to set back row and we can destroy everything. And they're gonna switch everything to defense, which that's completely fine, I don't really care. So this is where the strength of the seal comes in. It is not once per duel, it is once per turn. So even though we used it last turn, we can use it again, and we can this time send things from our field because otherwise we can't have zones to summon from. We're going to send one of our Stratos to make a armed dragon level 10, which is really good to destroy our opponent's monsters, but in this case our opponent is a bot and they don't have any monsters, so we won't be able to use the effect, but that's no big deal. We're going to add a copy of the polymerization from outside our deck, but because we already added the super polymerization, we don't have a second one in our deck, so we can't add another super polymerization, but one is all we need usually. So that's not not too big of a deal. We're gonna flip the Armed Dragon level 10 face up. If our opponent has any monsters, this is when you will be using its effect to destroy them. But now, because we are kind of free to do whatever we want, we're just gonna use our fusion spells to just get more guys on the field. So yeah, this deck can very easily just summon a lot of big monsters, because card like Miracle Fusion can just fusion someone from the graveyard without needing to use anything from the hand or the field. So we can just keep the super polymerization, no reason to set it, because in case our opponent has something that stops our monsters, we can still use it during the battle phase to fusion summon and then attack again. And also, it's just a good practice to not set the super poly in the cheap version of this deck, because if you set it and then your opponent's turn begins and then they use like a mystical space typhoon and destroys it, you lost the best card in your deck. So it's much smarter to keep it in your hand and then use it during your own turn as a way to get rid of your opponent's monsters. We won't be able to see it in action in this replay because our opponent doesn't have any monsters, but I will be showing a replay where I play this deck against an actual good deck in a legend rank against the best deck in the game, and then you'll be able to see how good this card is and the reason why we always want to keep it in our hand. So yeah, let's hop into that replay after we quickly deal enough lethal damage. So let's see this deck in action against a high-ranked opponent playing an actual good deck. They are playing the top-tier deck in this format, which is Despia. So having matchup knowledge is very important to make this deck a lot stronger than it might seem. So being able to sequence your interruptions in a way that your opponent is that favors you is very important. So understanding your opponent's deck lets you have a lot more of an edge, even though your opponent is playing a much better deck than you do. So, okay, this deck has a few interruptions. They always have Masquerade, which is a card that requires you to pay 600 life points to activate any card from your hand or just anywhere. So, because we only have 4,000 life points, this limits our activations to 6 cards total. After we activate 6 cards, we will be down to 400 life points, and then we won't have enough life points to pay, and then we just cannot activate any cards afterwards. So we will have to be very smart with our effect activations to make sure that we can do it under 6 activations. Our opponent will be adding a Dark Lord to their hand, and that's because one of their back row will be a quick play spell that fusion summons, and that card can make a really big untargetable fusion monster which destroys everything when it is summoned. And that also will bring back a copy of a Dramaturge, which is Monster Negate. So now we kind of understand what our opponent has. We will have to sequence this in a very smart way so that we can play through all of their things plus 2 unknown back row, which is the scariest part. So this is like a high roll hand. Usually what they will end on is just the Masquerade and the set fusion spell and also the Dramaturge, but they have 2 more set back rows. So this is more than what they usually end on. So we're gonna try to break through this. We're gonna first use Emergency Call to add a Stratos, and that's the reason why we do this is because the first thing we want to do is destroy all of his set cards, because once we get rid of all of his set cards, his monsters will be pretty easy to get rid of because we can just get rid of them using the Super Polymerization, or we can use Neo's Fusion to grab ourselves a Rainbow Neos and then use it to put everything back into the deck. So our first objective is to force them to use all of their spells and traps so that we can use the more powerful monsters that we have. That's why we're not summoning the Armed Dragon level 10. Usually when you go second, usually you make this card, which that allows you to destroy all monsters your opponent controls, but because so much of their power lies in their back row, as you can see they only have 1 monster on their field, and for reset back row, we prioritize destroying their back row more than their monsters. So we're gonna instead summon a copy of Elemental Hero Neos, so that we have more Elemental Hero monsters on our field, so that Stratos can destroy more set spells and traps. We're now gonna use Crosskeeper. As I said in the deck profile, we're gonna use it to just summon any Elemental Hero to our field. Even though it is negated, it doesn't matter because it achieves its purpose of being an Elemental Hero monster on our field. So now when we normal summon Stratos, we can use its Spell Trap Destroying effect and destroy 2 spells and traps without targeting. So as you can see, we're just going to declare the effect of Stratos, and he is forced to use, even though he has for reset spells and traps, he's forced to use them because there is a chance that I destroy his Branded in red, and then that cuts him off of all of his interruptions. So he's gonna use that, and then that allows him to fusion summon. He's gonna make the first Dark Lord, which is the thing that I talked about that destroys all of our monsters. And then because we don't target, we can just destroy the other 2 cards that are set. So after we destroy his other 2 back row, he now has no more spells and traps that we have to worry about. He also doesn't have any cards in his hand, so we don't have to worry about any sort of hand traps like DD Crow or Effect Veiler. We don't have to worry about those at all. So the only thing left on his field is the Masquerade that requires us to pay a lot of life points, and the first Dark Lord that gives him protection, and also the Dramaturge that he will be summoning shortly, which can negate one of our monsters. He will also be able to activate the on-summon effect of first Dark Lord to wipe everything on the field. That's okay. We have more plays we can do. We can activate Miracle Fusion to banish from our graveyard to summon a copy of Elemental Hero Sunrise. We're going to use the effect, again forcing us to pay 600 life points. We're going to use the effect of Sunrise. Usually you can also use both Crosskeeper and Liquid Soldier to draw 4 cards alongside the Sunrise Search, but because we don't have enough life points to pay, we don't want to do that. We will just say click no when the game asks us to use an effect, because otherwise we will not have enough life points to use Super Polymerization. So we're just going to use the Sunrise Search to bait out the Dramaturge to negate. So he's gonna fall for it. We're gonna chain a copy of Super Polymerization, and that will be the last card activation before we will not have enough activations left because of our life point count. So now we either get rid of the Masquerade or we don't activate any card effects for the rest of the turn. But we still need to activate our Neo's Fusion, so we will use it to get rid of the Masquerade. So now we can activate effects freely without needing to pay any more life points. So even though we're down to 400, we can still continue playing. And now, because Masquerade is no longer on the field, we can finally use the effect of Crosskeeper to draw cards without needing to pay life points. And then we can activate Miracle Fusion that we searched, even though our opponent tried to negate with Dramaturge because we chained the copy of Super Polymerization. The Sunrise is no longer on the field when it resolves its effect. So even though Dramaturge attempted to negate it, it's no longer on the field, which means I can still add the Miracle Fusion and use it to grab another monster to our field. So now we can finally activate our Neo's Fusion. Our opponent has no more monster effects left. This gives them targeting protection, which means we can't destroy them using Sunrise, but that's fine. We still have other ways to get rid of them. The Masquerade on the field does not require us to pay life points because it only forces us to pay life points when it is fusion summoned. So if it summons itself back from the graveyard, it is no longer a fusion summoned card, so we can still activate effects without paying anything. And then we can just use Rainbow's Neos effect, sending one of our fusions to the graveyard, and then returning every single monster that they have back to their deck. And then now they have no more monsters left, except for the one Aluber that will summon itself back when their monster gets back to the deck. That's okay, we can just attack over it with one of our other fusion monsters and then attack directly for exact lethal damage. And this is how you win with this friend campaign deck, even against the best deck in the game. You just have to sequence things very well, know what you're doing, know what your opponent's deck is capable of, and play very well. So I know this is a lot to take in if you're a new player. It's normal that you just don't know what your opponent is capable of. But as you play this game more, this is where you can kind of increase your own skill, is to not only understand your own deck more, but also understand your opponent's deck so that you can plan accordingly. You can plan your sequencing so that your opponent falls for your interruptions. They sequence things in unoptimally, suboptimally, and then you can take advantage of that and then still win in a position where your deck is fundamentally worse than theirs because you're just playing a friend campaign deck. So yeah, I hope you found this video useful. Even if you're not like a new player, I still hope that maybe you can learn a bit more about just playing heroes. I know this deck is kind of like a meme. People like to joke around this deck being like a brain dead deck, but even as a brain dead deck as it might seem, there is still a huge difference between a new player playing this deck and an experienced player and a guy who like knows what they're doing when they use this deck. It's two completely different experiences, and the latter one can be really, really threatening. It can be the deck can do a lot if you know what you're doing. So yeah, again, go to my description and comment to enter your code if you haven't to get this deck. I will start to redeem codes in like a few days after this video releases, so you better go there and reply with your code before it's too late. Okay, bye.